My name is David Rogers, and I've spent my entire adult life believing in the absolute truth of numbers. As CFO of Brennan Manufacturing here in Cincinnati, I've built my career on the principle my father taught me when I was just a boy watching him balance the books at his hardware store. Numbers never lie, people do. It's a lesson that served me well through my rise from junior accountant to the C-suite, through raising 3 children, through 21 years of marriage. Until I discovered that while numbers might not lie, they can be made to tell someone else's truth. I should have seen it coming. That's what haunts me during those 3 a.m. moments when sleep eludes me. All those years analyzing financial statements, identifying patterns, catching discrepancies that others missed. How did I miss the deception happening in my own home? Maybe it's because when you trust someone completely, you stop looking for the signs. You stop auditing. You assume the books balance because they always have. Laura and I met at Ernst & Young in the summer of 2003. We were both junior auditors, fresh CPAs grinding through our first busy season. I noticed her during a particularly brutal evening reviewing tax returns for a manufacturing client. It was past midnight, the office was nearly empty, and I heard laughter coming from the cubicle next to mine. Not bitter, exhausted laughter, but genuine joy. I peered around the partition to find Laura Thompson teaching herself to juggle with stress balls while waiting for spreadsheets to load. "Helps keep me awake," she said, not embarrassed at being caught. "Want to learn?" That's how it started, with juggling lessons at midnight in an empty accounting office. By the time busy season ended, we were sharing dinners. By the next busy season, we were engaged. We married at Alt Park Pavilion in the spring of 2005, a modest affair we paid for ourselves. Laura wore her mother's dress, altered to fit. I wore the one good suit I owned. The reception was buffet style, the bar limited to beer and wine. We started our marriage the way we intended to continue it, financially responsible, practical, honest. The early years were everything I'd mapped out in my personal financial projections. We rented a small apartment in Oakley while saving for a house down payment. We drove used cars, a Honda Civic for her, a Toyota Camry for me, until we could afford to pay cash for new ones. Every expense went into spreadsheets I maintained religiously. Laura would tease me about my Excel obsession, but she appreciated the security it brought. When our twin daughters Rachel and Rebecca arrived in 2006, we were prepared. When Daniel followed 2 years later, we had already adjusted our financial plan. Laura left public accounting after the twins were born. It was a mutual decision, carefully calculated. The cost of daycare for 2 infants would have consumed most of her salary anyway. She started taking bookkeeping clients from home, building slowly, working during naps and evenings. I was proud of her entrepreneurship, the way she balanced ledgers while balancing babies. When she wanted to formalize the business, I helped her set up a proper structure: LLC filing, business checking account, QuickBooks subscription. I believed in supporting her independence. By the time we bought the house in Indian Hill 15 years ago, we had our rhythm perfected. I was making controller by then, the salary jump finally putting us into the school district we wanted for the kids. The house was a stretch, a 1970s colonial that needed updating, but the bones were solid. We spent weekends painting rooms ourselves, Laura choosing colors while I calculated coverage per gallon. We refinished the hardwood floors during my vacation week, the kids staying with Laura's parents in Florida. Every improvement increased equity. Every mortgage payment built our future. The house became our project, our proof that we could build something lasting together. Laura had an eye for design, but always within budget. She'd scout estate sales and thrift stores, finding pieces that looked expensive but weren't. "It's not about spending money," she'd say, arranging another bargain find. "It's about having vision." I loved that about her, the ability to see potential where others saw junk, to transform the ordinary into something special without destroying our financial plans. I made CFO 5 years ago, and we celebrated by paying off the house early. I'll never forget that dinner at Jeff Ruby's, our first truly extravagant meal in years. Laura cried when I showed her the deed. Free and clear. We did it, she kept saying. We actually did it. We ordered champagne, real champagne, not the sparkling wine we usually settled for. The waiter took our picture, Laura holding the deed like a trophy. That photo still sits on my desk, though I've considered removing it 1,000 times since. With the mortgage gone, we accelerated our investments. 2 rental properties in Oakley, purchased with cash from my bonuses, both cash flowing immediately, bringing in $3,000 a month after expenses. The kids' college funds fully vested. The twins at Miami University, Daniel heading to Case Western for engineering next fall. My 401k maxed out annually. Laura's SEPIRA growing steadily. Our credit scores both hovering around 800. We were the American dream realized through spreadsheet discipline and mutual sacrifice. The rental properties were particularly satisfying. I'd spend Saturdays maintaining them, teaching Daniel basic repairs, while the girls helped Laura stage them for new tenants. It was family time disguised as work, building wealth while building memories. The tenants were carefully vetted. Credit checks, employment verification, references. Laura handled the interpersonal aspects while I managed the numbers. Perfect partnership, or so I thought. 6 months ago, Laura announced she wanted to expand her skill set. Financial planning certification, she said over dinner one Thursday. I could offer more comprehensive services to my clients. Xavier University has a program, Thursday evenings and Saturday mornings. How long is the program? I asked, already calculating the ROI. 1 year. The tuition is $8,000, but I can earn that back with just 2 additional clients. The math worked. The logic was sound. I wrote the check without hesitation, even felt proud of her ambition at 45. Many people our age were coasting toward retirement. Laura was still climbing. You know what I love about you, I told her that night. You never stop growing. 21 years together and you still surprise me. She kissed me then, long and deep. The kind of kiss that had become rare with teenagers in the house. You have no idea, she said, and I thought I heard excitement about her new educational adventure. Looking back, the excitement was there, just not about education. The Thursday routine started immediately. She'd leave at 5:30, claiming she needed extra time for traffic to Xavier's campus. She'd return around 10 p.m., tired but energized, talking about portfolio theory and retirement strategies. She showed me notebooks filling with what looked like class notes, though I never examined them closely. Why would I? This was Laura, who'd balanced our checkbook to the penny for 2 decades. She'd come home those Thursday nights glowing with intellectual stimulation. The professor is brilliant, she'd say, really challenging us to think differently about wealth building. She'd show me homework assignments, complex calculations about risk tolerance and asset allocation. Sometimes she'd ask my opinion on case studies, and we'd discuss them over wine, feeling like college students again. It was nice, having something intellectual to share beyond the mundane logistics of family life. Saturday mornings followed the same pattern. Gone by 8 a.m., back by 2 p.m., always with a coffee cup from what she said was the campus cafe. I used the time for yard work or golf, enjoying the routine disruption. The rental properties needed maintenance, the garage needed organizing. Her absence gave me productive time I hadn't realized I'd missed. How's the networking? I asked one Saturday when she returned. Making good connections? The best, she said, unpacking textbooks I never looked at closely. There's actually this group of us who study together. Different backgrounds, but all trying to transition into financial planning. It's inspiring being around people who refuse to settle. The changes were subtle at first. Laura's wardrobe evolved. New suits from Nordstrom instead of Macy's, higher heels, silk blouses instead of cotton. Professional development includes looking professional, she explained, modeling a particularly expensive jacket. Besides, I'm meeting with higher net worth clients now. Image matters. The jewelry appeared gradually. An estate sale bracelet here, vintage earrings there. Investment pieces, she called them. They hold value better than new. Her financial argument made sense, even if the frequency of purchases seemed high. Her hair appointments moved from our usual salon in Madeira to a trendy place in Oakley. The color was richer, the style more sophisticated. The gray was aging me, she said, though I'd never noticed any gray before. You look younger than when we met, I told her one evening, and it was true. There was something about her energy, her posture, the way she carried herself, like she'd shed years along with her old wardrobe. Our Thursday tradition of watching Reds games together disappeared. Saturday morning farmers' market runs became solo ventures. The intimacy that had always come easily began requiring effort. Laura blamed stress from studying, exhaustion from juggling clients and classes. I gave her space, attributing everything to a midlife adjustment period. We'd weathered busy seasons, infant twins, career changes. This too would pass. But there were moments that felt off, like background music in the wrong key. She'd be texting and smile at her phone with an expression I hadn't seen in years. When I'd ask who it was, she'd say, "Study group," but put the phone face down. She started taking calls in her office with the door closed, something she'd never done before. Client confidentiality, she explained, but her bookkeeping clients had never required such privacy before. The first real flag appeared accidentally. My car needed service, so I borrowed Laura's Honda one Tuesday morning. Reaching for the garage door opener, I expected to see her Xavier parking pass hanging from the mirror. Nothing. When I asked that evening, she laughed it off. I park on the street. Why waste money on a permit when there's free parking 2 blocks away? The explanation defied everything I knew about Laura. She once drove 3 blocks in rain rather than risk a parking ticket. She prepaid parking meters. She would never risk campus police tickets for an entire semester. But I filed the inconsistency away, telling myself there must be a reasonable explanation. Maybe I should get you a permit for Christmas, I joked. Save you the walk. Don't you dare waste money on that, she said, sharper than necessary. Then, softening, seriously, the walk is good for me. Only exercise I get these days. My CFO instincts, once triggered, couldn't be completely silenced. Without consciously deciding to investigate, I found myself noting patterns. Credit card charges at restaurants and over the Rhine during class times. ATM withdrawals from downtown. Nowhere near Xavier. When I casually mentioned the restaurant charges, she had ready explanations, study groups, networking with classmates, building professional relationships. All plausible, all perfectly reasonable. There's this one woman in my class, Laura said, explaining a particularly expensive dinner charge. She runs a wealth management firm downtown. She's been incredibly helpful, might even offer me a position once I'm certified. These relationships are investments, David. You understand that. I did understand. Networking was crucial in financial services. But something felt rehearsed about her explanation, like she'd prepared it in advance. The business account told a different story. The balance was lower than my projections suggested it should be. When I offered to help with collections from slow-paying clients, Laura's response was uncharacteristically sharp. I can manage my own business, David. I don't audit your work. She apologized later, blamed the stress again, but she'd never been territorial about the business before. We'd always shared everything, consulted on everything. This new boundary felt wrong, but I respected it. Trust requires respect, and I trusted Laura completely. A month into her program, I decided to surprise her with flowers delivered to her class. I called Xavier's continuing education department, asking for the room number for the financial planning certification course. I'm sorry, sir, but we don't currently offer a financial planning certification program, the administrator said. We have accounting courses, some finance workshops, but no certification program. Could you check under Laura Rogers? Maybe it's listed differently? Keyboard clicking. A pause. No enrollment for anyone by that name this semester, sir. Would you like information about our upcoming programs? I hung up without answering. The cold that spread through my chest was familiar. The same feeling I got when uncovering fraud at work. But this was Laura. There had to be an explanation. A different campus, perhaps. University of Cincinnati, maybe, or Northern Kentucky University. I'd misunderstood. Communication error? Had to be. That Thursday, I left work early with a phantom migraine. Instead of going home, I parked near Xavier's campus at 6 p.m. and waited. 90 minutes later, no Honda. I drove to UC's campus, checked the evening parking lots. Nothing. At 7:30, my phone buzzed with Laura's text. Great class tonight. Professor really challenging us with case studies. I replied normally, learn anything interesting? Always. Tell you about it when I get home. Love you. The love you felt different now. Performative, obligatory, or was I projecting? I drove home, poured 3 fingers of bourbon, and opened my laptop. If Laura wasn't in class, where was she spending 4 hours every Thursday and Saturday? The technology solution came from a YouTube video on parental monitoring software. Ironic, considering our youngest was 17. The software installed on Laura's laptop during a system update I performed while she showered. Her browsing history revealed searches I couldn't initially understand. Mortgage pre-approval, debt-to-income ratios, joint ownership laws, Ohio, community property versus equitable distribution. Real estate websites dominated her recent activity. Houses in Montgomery, Mason, Westchester, all far above our price range, even with my CFO salary. Why was she looking at $800,000 houses? We had a beautiful home, paid off, in one of Cincinnati's best neighborhoods. The encrypted folders on her drive remained locked, passwords I couldn't crack. But I had enough to know something was seriously wrong. I started paying attention to details I'd previously ignored. Laura's phone, which used to sit casually on counters, now lived in her pocket or face down beside her. She'd added a password, claiming the kids had been getting into her work emails. She showered with her phone in the bathroom, saying she needed to be available for client emergencies. She'd developed a new laugh, lighter, more girlish, one I'd never heard in 21 years. "You seem happy," I said one evening, watching her practically dance around the kitchen while making dinner. "I am happy," she said, not meeting my eyes. "The program is just opening so many doors for me. I feel like I'm finally becoming who I was meant to be." "I didn't realize you were unhappy before." She paused, considering. "Not unhappy. Just unrealized. You know? Like I've been living someone else's life for 20 years. The comment stung, but I pushed it aside. Midlife introspection was normal. Everyone questioned their choices occasionally. It didn't mean anything. Saturday morning, November 2nd. Laura left for her class at 8 a.m. sharp. I was supposedly meeting colleagues for golf at Heritage Club. Instead, I waited 5 minutes, then followed her Honda at a distance, feeling ridiculous and necessary simultaneously. She drove north on I-71, past the Xavier exit, past UC, continuing toward Montgomery. My hands gripped the steering wheel as she took the Montgomery Road exit. This wasn't the way to any university campus. She pulled into an office complex on Montgomery Road. Professional buildings, mostly medical and financial services. I parked across the street, watched her enter a building with Hartwell Financial Services on the directory. 20 minutes later, a man joined her. Tall, silver-haired, expensive suit that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. They didn't touch, but their body language suggested familiarity, comfort, intimacy. They stood too close. When he held the door, his hand briefly touched her lower back, gentle but possessive. She looked up at him and smiled. Not her polite professional smile, but the one I remembered from our dating years. The one I hadn't seen in so long I'd forgotten it existed. The BMW parked next to Laura's Honda had personalized plates, JHTWELL. Running the plates that afternoon led me to James Hartwell, age 52, owner of Hartwell Financial Services. LinkedIn revealed his specialty: creative financing solutions and non-traditional mortgage arrangements. Recently divorced. House in Montgomery worth $1.2 million, according to Zillow. His company's Facebook page included photos from a recent Women in Business luncheon. Laura was in one photo, identified as a financial consultant. Since when? The photo showed them standing together at the luncheon, his arm around her waist, both holding champagne glasses. She wore a dress I'd never seen, designer, the kind she'd always claimed was wasteful. Her expression was radiant. The comments below the photo were professional but knowing. Great couple. Perfect partnership. So happy for you both. The post was from 3 weeks ago. How long had this been going on? That afternoon, while Laura attended her class, I did something I'd never imagined. I searched her home office. Her filing cabinet was locked, but YouTube University taught me lockpicking too. Inside, folders labeled with typical boring accuracy. Tax documents 2019 to 2023. Insurance policies. Client contracts. But underneath, an unmarked manila folder that changed everything. Mortgage pre-approval letters. 3 different banks. All showing Laura Rogers and James Hartwell as co-applicants. Joint income listed at $450,000. Asset statements showing investment accounts we didn't have. Properties we didn't own. Her signature next to his dated over the past 3 months. The property address. New construction in Mason. Purchase price $850,000. Down payment source. Gift from family. Whose family? Laura's parents were retired teachers living on Social Security. Mine were gone. Dad 5 years ago, Mom 8. The gift was a fiction, but where would the actual money come from? The emails were worse than the mortgage applications. Printed conversations between lrogersgmail.com, not her usual email, and jhartwellhartwellfinancial.com. Reading them felt like swallowing glass. Once the mortgage closes, file the papers. Half of everything plus the house in Indian Hill. You'll be set for life. Laura's response. 21 years of boredom finally paying off. He's so predictable, he'll never see it coming. You deserve better. You deserve someone who appreciates your ambition. David thinks ambition means making CFO. He has no vision, no passion, just his spreadsheets and his rules. After the divorce, we'll travel. Europe first? Anywhere but here. I'm suffocating in suburban perfection. The kids, they're old enough to understand. Besides, they'll have college funds. That's all David's good for anyway, being a financial provider. You're sure he doesn't suspect? David, he's too trusting, too boring. He actually believes I'm taking classes. He wrote the check without even verifying the program existed. His loss is my gain. 8 more weeks and I'm free. We close on the 15th. I file on the 18th. By December, we'll be living our real lives. The phrase that broke something inside me, the obstacle will be removed soon enough. I was the obstacle. 21 years, 3 children, a life built together. I was now just an obstacle to be removed. There were pages of emails, each one worse than the last. They discussed furniture for their new house while I sat in the one we'd renovated together. They planned European vacations funded by my destruction. They laughed, actually typed LOL, about how clueless I was, how easy it was to deceive someone who trusted completely. The fool actually offered to help with my homework last night, Laura had written. I had to make up some garbage about portfolio theory. He ate it up, even offered his professional insights. God, he's pathetic. Soon you won't have to pretend, Hartwell had replied. Though I have to admit, the fact that he's funding his own destruction through that tuition check is poetic justice. The best part? He's proud of me for continuing my education. If only he knew what I'm really learning. How to be free. How to be with someone who actually makes me feel alive. I sat on Laura's office floor, surrounded by evidence of my blindness, reading about my inadequacies through my wife's eyes. Boring, predictable, passionless. Just a provider, a walking ATM who'd served his purpose and could now be discarded. The children reduced to college funds. Our home dismissed as suburban prison. Our life together reframed as 21 years of her suffering. The full picture emerged through forensic accounting that would have made my Ernst & Young partners proud. Laura had been siphoning money from her business account for 6 months. Small amounts, $500 here, $1,000 there, but totaling $47,000. The money sat in an account I found referenced in the mortgage documents, under her maiden name at a credit union I'd never heard of. Her business tax returns, which I'd trusted her to handle, showed losses for the past 2 years. Paper losses created through creative categorization, preparing for a divorce claim that I'd been unsupportive of her business, that she'd sacrificed for my career. The narrative was already written, waiting to be filed. The business records revealed more. Fake invoices to non-existent clients, creating a paper trail of income that didn't exist. Real client payments diverted to her secret account, their records altered to show lower amounts. She'd been building a war chest while simultaneously creating evidence that her business was failing because of my lack of support. I found drafts of emails to our children, never sent, explaining her version of events, how their father had been emotionally absent, while I attended every game, every recital, every parent conference. How she'd sacrificed her career for his, she left public accounting by choice. How she'd tried to make it work for their sake, while planning her escape with another man. The gaslighting was so thorough, so well-crafted, I wondered if even she believed it. The closing was scheduled for November 15th. The divorce papers, found in draft form on her laptop, would be filed the following Monday. Her attorney, Stuart Blackstone, was known for aggressive tactics and winning big settlements. The allegations were all there: emotional abuse, financial control, isolation from friends and family. Fiction, but compelling fiction. First story told often becomes truth in divorce court. The temporary support request was already calculated, $5,000 a month, based on the lifestyle I'd forced her to maintain. The house would be hers during proceedings, forcing me out of my own home. The retirement accounts frozen, the rental properties tied up in litigation. She'd calculated it would take 18 months minimum to resolve, during which time she'd be living with Hartwell in their new house while I paid for lawyers and tried to prove negatives. Everything I'd built to protect my family was about to become ammunition for its destruction. The college funds, in both our names, vulnerable to division. The house, despite my inheritance providing the down payment, was marital property. My retirement accounts, accumulated over 2 decades, half hers by law. The rental properties, purchased with my bonuses, subject to equitable distribution. She'd take half of everything, then build a new life with Hartwell on my financial corpse. But there was more. The mortgage fraud itself was just the beginning. Once they had the house, the plan was to leverage it for more properties. Hartwell's business specialized in these schemes, helping wealthy divorcees hide assets, structure deals that looked legitimate but weren't. Laura wasn't just leaving me. She was entering a criminal enterprise. I found research on my computer, searches I hadn't made, how to transfer money offshore, asset protection trusts, bankruptcy fraud penalties. She'd been using my computer to research these things, knowing that if discovered, the searches would be traced to me. She was setting me up as the criminal while committing crimes herself. The rage that built wasn't hot. It was cold, calculated, the kind that comes from understanding you've been played by someone you'd have died for. They thought I was boring David, reliable David, predictable David who'd take the hit and rebuild quietly. They underestimated what a CFO does when someone tries to steal from his company. They forgot that I spent years learning how to destroy people who commit fraud. Time to apply those skills to my personal life. The preparation took 2 weeks. 2 weeks of normal dinners, normal conversations, normal bedtimes while I dismantled Laura's plan and built my own. Every move had to be legal but aggressive, documented but unexpected. I wasn't just going to defend, I was going to destroy. I started with research, learning everything about Hartwell. His divorce had been ugly, accusations of hidden assets, infidelity with clients. His ex-wife Sarah had gotten less than she deserved because she couldn't prove what he'd hidden. But she'd been right. I found the hidden assets through careful analysis of public records, property transfers to shell companies, a pattern of fraud going back years. His business was built on these schemes, helping people hide money during divorces, structuring fraudulent mortgages, teaching clients how to manufacture income for loan applications. Laura wasn't his first. There had been at least 3 other women, all divorced, all convinced to participate in similar schemes. 2 had been caught, prosecuted, served time. Laura would have known this if she'd done any research beyond his net worth. First, the assets. The college funds transferred to irrevocable trusts with the children as sole beneficiaries. Laura's signature not required since they were UTMA accounts. The rental properties transferred to an LLC, using Laura's own bookkeeping oversights to backdate the paperwork. She'd been so focused on her scheme, she'd neglected proper documentation for months. Retirement account loans taken to the maximum allowed. Cash placed in a safety deposit box at a bank Laura didn't know existed. Every transaction was legal, documented, justified. If asked, I was simply restructuring for tax purposes, something any CFO would do periodically. The timing was coincidental. The fact that it protected assets from divorce proceedings was just fortunate planning. The evidence gathering required professional help. Through our corporate attorney, I hired a private investigator, official business, investigating potential vendor fraud. The PI just happened to observe Laura during the investigation. Photos of Laura and Hartwell at restaurants, entering his condo, shopping at Tiffany's. The mortgage fraud evidence copied, originals carefully replaced. Her laptop cloned entirely. Every keystroke monitored through software she'd never detect. The photos were damning. Laura and Hartwell kissing in his BMW. Entering a jewelry store where she'd charged a $3,000 necklace to our credit card, claimed it was for a client gift. At a bed and breakfast in Kentucky during a weekend, she'd said she was visiting her sister in Columbus. The PI was thorough, professional, worth every penny of the $10,000 I paid him. But the real gold mine was Hartwell's history. The PI found the previous women, interviewed them discreetly. Their stories were identical to Laura's, met during a financial consultation, convinced their marriages were holding them back, guided into mortgage fraud, then discarded when the scheme fell apart or they'd served their purpose. One was serving 3 years in federal prison. Another was working minimum wage after losing her professional licenses. The third had fled the country. The federal crime aspect was a gift I hadn't expected. Mortgage fraud crossing state lines brings FBI jurisdiction. A former colleague, now at the Department of Justice, reviewed my evidence package over coffee. His whistle was low and appreciative. This is textbook wire fraud, bank fraud, conspiracy. 10 to 30 years if convicted. Your wife and her boyfriend are idiots. Soon-to-be ex-wife, I corrected. Want some advice? Let them close. Let them complete the crime. Right now, it's just attempted fraud. The moment they sign those closing documents, it's federal prison territory. What about my liability? We're married. Her crimes could be considered mine. Not if you're the one who reports them. Especially if you're wearing a wire when they confess. You become the whistleblower, not the co-conspirator. We've been watching Hartwell for 2 years. Your wife just gave us the final evidence we need. The plan crystallized. I wouldn't just stop the fraud. I'd let them commit it, then ensure they faced maximum consequences. Laura wanted to destroy me financially. I'd destroy her completely, legally, permanently. Meanwhile, I planted seeds for professional destruction. Anonymous tips to the Ohio Department of Commerce about Hartwell's mortgage practices. Turns out, he had previous complaints, a pattern emerging. Subtle questions to Laura's bookkeeping clients about their satisfaction, whether they'd verified her credentials recently. Not accusations, just concerns from a caring husband about his wife seeming stressed. Several mentioned they'd been considering changes anyway. I contacted 3 of Laura's biggest clients directly as their CFO to bookkeeper. Just wanted to make sure you're satisfied with the service, I said. Laura's seemed distracted lately, and I want to ensure your needs are being met. 2 mentioned discrepancies they'd been meaning to discuss. 1 had already decided to switch providers. The seeds of professional destruction were planted before she even knew I suspected. The hardest part was preparing the children. I couldn't tell them everything, not yet. But I started laying groundwork. Your mom and I are going through something, I told them one evening when Laura was at class. We might be separating. Rachel spoke first, always the bold one. Is she cheating? The directness stunned me. Why would you ask that? She's different, Rebecca added. New clothes, new hair, always on her phone. Secret smiles at texts. We're not stupid, Dad. Daniel, my quiet engineer, just nodded. The Saturday classes are fake, aren't they? Xavier's campus is closed on Saturdays this semester for renovation. I checked when I was looking at colleges. My children were more observant than their CFO father. When this explodes, and it will soon, I need you to know, you're protected. College is paid for. You'll stay with me. Your mom made choices that have consequences. Is she going to jail? Daniel asked. Probably. They didn't cry. They didn't defend her. They just nodded, and Rachel hugged me. We love you, Dad. You deserved better. How long have you known? Rebecca asked. About the affair. 2 weeks. About the fraud? 3 days. Fraud? All 3 leaned forward. I showed them some of the evidence. Not the worst emails, but enough. The mortgage applications with fabricated income. The photos of their mother with Hartwell. The divorce papers she'd already drafted. She was going to take the college funds, Daniel said, reading through the documents with his analytical mind. She was going to steal our futures for him. I've already protected those funds. Whatever happens, your education is secure. Rachel was crying now, angry tears. 21 years and she throws it away for some old guy with money? He won't have money much longer, I said quietly. Neither will she. November 14th arrived gray and cold, fitting weather for an execution. Laura was nervous about the closing, though she attributed it to excitement about her big presentation for her final class. Actually, I said over breakfast, I was thinking we should celebrate. Jeff Ruby's tonight? 7 o'clock? Her smile was genuine for the first time in months. Really? That's so sweet. What's the occasion? Just feeling grateful for my ambitious wife, proud of you for pursuing your dreams. She kissed me then, probably the last genuine gesture between us. or maybe not genuine at all. I couldn't tell anymore. I might be late from class, she said. Can we make it 7:30? Of course. Take your time. This is your big day. She left humming, practically floating. If she'd been paying attention, she'd have noticed I was too calm, too supportive. But she was drunk on her own scheme, blind to everything but her approaching freedom. I took a personal day, officially to handle some rental property maintenance. Laura barely noticed, focused on her phone, texting constantly. At 9 a.m., I met with FBI agents at their Cincinnati field office. The wire I wore was smaller than I'd expected, completely invisible under my shirt. Just get them to talk about the mortgage, Agent Sarah instructed. Mention the income figures, the down payment source. Get them to acknowledge the fraud verbally. We'll handle the rest. What if they don't talk? They will. Criminals always want to brag about their schemes, especially when they think they've won. Just act confused, hurt. Let them explain how clever they've been. The closing was scheduled for 2 p.m. at First National Bank's main branch downtown. I arrived at 1:45, parking next to Laura's Honda and Hartwell's BMW. The security cameras would capture everything. I waited in the lobby, watching through glass doors as Laura and Hartwell sat close together at a conference table, reviewing documents. Her hand briefly touched his. 21 years versus 6 months, and the 6 months won. I watched them for 5 minutes, noting their body language. The casual touches, the shared smiles, the way they leaned into each other's space. They looked like a couple who'd been together for years, comfortable, familiar. How long had this really been going on? Was 6 months just when the financial planning started, not when the affair began? I entered at exactly 2 p.m. Hi, honey. Thought I'd support my wife's business expansion. Laura's face went white. Hartwell stood, extending his hand like we were old friends. You must be David. Laura's told me so much about you. Has she? All good, I hope. I sat down uninvited, pulled the mortgage documents toward me. Let me see what my wife's been working on. The closing agent, a young woman named Jennifer, looked confused. I'm sorry, are you part of this transaction? Oh, I'm definitely part of this. I started reading aloud. Joint applicants, Laura Rogers and James Hartwell. Combined income $450,000. That's interesting, honey. When did we start making $450,000? Laura's mouth opened and closed like a landed fish. David, this isn't what... And this down payment. Gift from family. Which family would that be? Your parents who live on Social Security? Or the inheritance from my father that's somehow been classified as a gift? Hartwell tried to intervene, his voice smooth, professional. Mr. Rogers, I think there's been a misunderstanding. This is a business investment property. Laura and I are partners in fraud? I pulled out my phone, displayed one of their emails. Once the mortgage closes, file the papers. That's divorce papers, right? Was that the business partnership? Laura found her voice, shifted to offense. You went through my emails. You violated my privacy. How dare you? How dare I? You're committing fraud with your boyfriend, and I'm the bad guy for discovering it. He's not my... We're business partners. Business partners who discuss our boring marriage? Who plan European vacations together? Who call me an obstacle to be removed? Jennifer, the closing agent, was backing toward the door. I think we need to postpone. No need. I stood, smiled at my wife and her lover. Please proceed. I want to watch my wife commit federal fraud. The FBI is particularly interested in this closing. As if on cue, Agents Martinez and Sarah entered. Their badges caught the afternoon light streaming through the bank windows. Laura Rogers, James Hartwell, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit wire fraud, bank fraud, and making false statements to a financial institution. Laura's scream was primal. "David, please! I can explain. It's not what you think." "Explain to the FBI. I'm sure they'll be fascinated by your creative financing techniques." Hartwell tried to run. Tried. Agent Martinez, former Marine, had him face down on the marble floor in 2 seconds. The sound of his nose breaking was oddly satisfying. The handcuffs clicking on Laura's wrists sounded like justice. "David, the children. Think of the children." "I am thinking of them. I'm showing them that actions have consequences, that fraud is wrong, that betraying your family for money and excitement ends badly. You set me up. You entrapped me." Agent Sarah spoke up. "Ma'am, your husband didn't make you commit fraud. He just reported it. You might want to stop talking now." But Laura couldn't stop. 21 years of practiced manipulation poured out. "He's controlling. Abusive. I was trying to escape. He monitors everything I do. Check his computers. He's the real criminal." "We did check his computers," Sarah said calmly. "We found your searches on them. Were you trying to frame him? Or just stupid enough to use his laptop for crime research?" That shut Laura up. The realization that her plan had been discovered, dissected, and turned against her finally hit. She looked at me with pure hatred. "You destroyed me." "No," I said quietly. "You destroyed yourself. I just made sure you faced consequences." The local news crews were waiting outside, tipped off by an anonymous source who might have been me. The perp walk was everything I'd hoped. Laura trying to hide her face. Hartwell bleeding through the tissues the agents provided. Local bookkeeper and mortgage broker arrested in housing fraud scheme led the evening news. My statement was prepared, delivered perfectly. I'm shocked by my wife's deception, but cooperating fully with authorities to ensure justice is served. The neighbors watched from their yards as FBI agents searched our house that evening, removing boxes of evidence from Laura's office. I stood in the driveway, accepting condolences and casseroles, playing the wounded but dignified husband. Inside, I felt nothing but cold satisfaction. Margaret Crawford from 2 houses down brought a lasagna. "I never liked her," she confided. "Too fancy for the neighborhood. Always thought she was better than everyone." Bob Martinez from across the street shook my head. "If you need anything, brother." Anything at all. The support was genuine, warming. These people I'd barely spoken to in 15 years suddenly surrounding me with suburban solidarity. Laura had been so focused on escaping suburban perfection, she'd never realized what she was throwing away. A community that would have supported her if she'd just been genuine. Laura's bail was set at $100,000. I refused to post it. Her parents, contacted by her court-appointed attorney, couldn't afford it. She spent the first night in federal detention, probably her first night without 400 thread count sheets in 20 years. Hartwell made bail, his ex-wife having ironically posted it, hoping to recoup it from hidden assets she now suspected existed. My attorney filed for divorce that afternoon. Ohio's adultery and fraud provisions meant Laura got nothing. Emergency orders were granted immediately. Laura banned from the house, all joint accounts frozen, contact with children restricted to supervised visits they'd never request. Her personal belongings were placed in a storage unit, 1 month paid, after that her problem. The children were waiting when I got home from the attorney's office. They'd watched the news, seen their mother in handcuffs. Daniel had made dinner, spaghetti, the only thing he knew how to cook. Rachel had stress-baked 3 dozen cookies. Rebecca had created a spreadsheet of everything that needed to be handled with Laura gone. "We've got this, Dad," Rachel said, hugging me. "We're Rogers." We're stronger than she thought. I told them everything that evening. Spread the evidence across the dining room table like a PowerPoint from hell. The mortgage applications, the emails, the photographs, the arrest video already uploaded to YouTube by a bystander. Rachel cried. Rebecca threw her mother's picture across the room. Daniel just stared at the emails, reading them over and over. She called you boring, he finally said. You're not boring, Dad. You're stable. There's a difference. She called us obligations, Rebecca added, finding another email. Said we were old enough to understand. Understand what? That she's a criminal who chose some old guy over her family? Their decision was unanimous. Stay with me. Cut contact with Laura. Her calls from jail went unanswered. Her letters, when they came weeks later, were returned unopened. She'd orphaned herself through greed. The professional collapse was swift and brutal. Laura's bookkeeping clients fled within 48 hours. Her CPA certification was suspended pending investigation. Hartwell's mortgage license was revoked after 3 days. His previous clients, alerted by the news, began discovering discrepancies in their own loans. The lawsuit started before he even made his first court appearance. Laura's largest client, a chain of dental offices, called me directly. We found significant discrepancies going back 2 years, the owner said. We're filing charges. Thought you should know. I'm sorry for any losses, I said. Don't be. You're the victim here. We all are. But you had the courage to stop her. The dominoes kept falling. Hartwell's ex-wife Sarah, who'd thought their divorce was final, discovered he'd hidden assets during their settlement. Her attorney filed for fraud. The divorce settlement reopened. She stood to gain everything he'd hidden, plus penalties. His children, both in college, changed their surnames to their mother's maiden name. Sarah called me one evening. Thank you, she said simply. You gave me the evidence I never could find. He destroyed my life 5 years ago. Now I get justice. I'm sorry you went through that. Don't be. We're survivors, you and I. The only difference is you caught them before they succeeded. Laura's sisters in Cleveland and Columbus stopped returning her calls. Her book club friends discovered she'd been lying to them too, about classes, about our marriage problems, about David being controlling and abusive. The narrative she'd been building collapsed under the weight of evidence. Even her hairdresser posted on Facebook about being owed $500. The emails between Laura and Hartwell became public during discovery. The local newspaper published excerpts, the public fascination with suburban scandal overwhelming any privacy concerns. Laura's description of me as boring, predictable, and essentially an ATM with a pulse became a local meme. Someone made t-shirts. Boring and proud. I didn't buy one, but I appreciated the sentiment. The federal trial took 6 months to schedule. Both pleaded guilty to avoid longer sentences. Laura testified against Hartwell in exchange for a reduced sentence, their alliance crumbling into mutual accusation. She got 5 years federal prison. He got 8 as the mastermind, though I knew Laura was equally culpable. The courtroom was packed for sentencing. I sat in the front row, making sure Laura could see me. Laura's attorney argued for leniency. Miss Thompson was manipulated by an older, more sophisticated criminal. She was seeking emotional fulfillment that her marriage lacked. The judge, a woman in her 60s, was unimpressed. Miss Thompson is a CPA. She knew exactly what she was doing. The emotional manipulation argument might work if she hadn't written emails calling her husband boring and planning to take him for everything. This wasn't a crime of passion. It was a calculated scheme to defraud both financial institutions and her family. Laura tried to speak to me before they led her away. David, I'm sorry. I was confused. He manipulated me. Can you ever forgive me? I forgive you, I said, and her face lit up with hope. I forgive you because holding on to anger would hurt me, not you. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean reconciliation. It means I'm free of you. Enjoy prison. The children don't want to hear from you, ever. You called them obligations, remember? Well, they're not your obligation anymore. They're my privilege. She was crying as they led her away, ugly sobs that might have moved me once. Now I felt nothing. The woman I'd loved was gone, had been gone for years probably. This was just a stranger who looked like her, wearing orange instead of Nordstrom. The divorce was finalized while she was incarcerated. 21 years dissolved in a 20-minute hearing she attended via video link from federal prison. She got nothing. No alimony, no property, no retirement. The fraud conviction voided any claim to marital assets. She kept her maiden name by court order. She was no longer entitled to be a Rogers. "Is there anything you'd like to say to your ex-husband?" the judge asked Laura at the end. She looked directly at the camera. "You won. I hope you're happy." "I am," I said to the screen. "Happier than I've been in years." The civil suits followed. Banks pursued both for damages from the attempted fraud. Hartwell's clients formed a class action. I considered my own suit but decided criminal conviction was revenge enough. My energy was better spent rebuilding than prolonging any connection to Laura. The children graduated without their mother. Rachel and Rebecca from Miami University, Daniel from high school heading to Case Western. Laura sent letters asking to attend, promising to behave, begging for just 1 hour to see her children succeed. The letters went straight to my attorney, who responded with restraining order reminders. "Do you ever wonder if we're being too harsh?" Rebecca asked once. "She tried to steal your college funds," I reminded her. "She called you obligations. She chose a criminal over her family. What's harsh about protecting ourselves from someone who sees us as ATMs?" Laura serves her time at the federal facility in Alderson, West Virginia. I know from the victim notification system that she works in the prison laundry, earning 23 cents an hour. Her bookkeeping skills are useless there. She writes letters to the children monthly. They've never opened a single one. Rachel brought me the first one, asked what to do with it. "Whatever gives you peace," I said. She burned it in the backyard fire pit, watching the smoke rise and disappear. The children created a ritual. Every letter from Laura goes into what they call the truth fire. They read the return address to confirm it's from her, then burn it unopened. "She had 21 years to tell us the truth," Daniel said. "Why would we believe her now?" Hartwell is at medium security in Ashland, Kentucky. He requested protective custody after other inmates learned he was a mortgage broker who'd preyed on families. His BMW was auctioned to pay restitution. His $1 million house was foreclosed on after 3 missed payments. His retirement accounts were seized. He'll be released at age 60, with nothing but a federal conviction that will prevent him from ever working in finance again. His ex-wife Sarah and I became unlikely friends, bonded by mutual betrayal. She invited me to her wedding when she remarried, a pediatrician who adopted Hartwell's children at their request. The wedding was beautiful, a celebration of second chances and authentic love. Hartwell probably read about it in the prison library, learning about his erasure in the celebration of his ex-wife's happiness. I started dating Margaret 18 months after Laura's conviction. She's a widow who understands betrayal differently but completely. Her husband didn't choose to leave through crime, but through cancer. Still, she knows the aftermath of loss, the careful reconstruction of self. She doesn't try to replace Laura. She creates her own space. The children like her because she doesn't pretend to be their mother. She's just Margaret, who makes excellent lasagna and remembers their birthdays and doesn't lie. "You know what I love about you?" Margaret said one evening, apropos of nothing. "What?" "You're exactly who you appear to be. No secrets, no schemes, no hidden agendas. After what you've been through, that must be a choice." "It's the only way I know how to be," I said. Laura thought that made me boring. Laura was an idiot. Steady isn't boring, it's rare. We don't live together yet. Maybe we never will. I've learned to appreciate solitude, the peace of a house where every room holds truth. The rental properties are sold, the investments simplified. Life is streamlined now, authentic in a way it never was when I was maintaining Laura's fiction alongside my reality. The house in Indian Hill sold last month. Too many memories, even after extensive remodeling. The new owners are a young family, the wife pregnant with twins. They love the kitchen Laura demanded we renovate. The bathroom she insisted needed Italian marble. They don't know about the tears in that marble, the fights in that kitchen. To them, it's just a beautiful house in a good school district. That's all it should be. I bought a smaller place in Hyde Park, walking distance to Margaret's condo. The children each have a room for visits, but it's really just mine. My books, my furniture choices, my life without committee decisions or compromises. Laura would hate it. Too small, too modest, too genuine. That's exactly why I love it. 3 years have passed since that November afternoon at the bank. Laura has 2 more years to serve, minus good behavior. I know she's already planning her return, writing letters to distant relatives, trying to reconstruct a support system. Her parents, in their late 70s now, have prepared their spare bedroom. She'll return to her childhood bed, her childhood town in Florida, probably work minimum wage if anyone will hire her with a federal conviction. Her mother called me once shortly after the conviction. How could you do this to her? She made a mistake. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary, I said. Planning to defraud banks and destroy your family while having an affair is a crime spree. She loved you once? No, I corrected. She loved what I could provide. There's a difference. She hung up on me. I never heard from her again. Sometimes I Google Laura, just to see what the internet remembers. The mugshot is the first image result. The news articles dominate the first 3 pages. Her LinkedIn profile, somehow still active, lists her as currently seeking opportunities. The opportunities she sought found her, just not the way she planned. Someone created a Wikipedia page about the case, calling it the Cincinnati Mortgage Fraud Scandal. Laura and Hartwell have their own subsections, complete with their mugshots and links to court documents. It's been edited dozens of times, but the facts remain consistent. The truth, unlike Laura's stories, doesn't change. Hartwell will serve at least 5 more years. His ex-wife's wedding announcement mentioned the children's joy at having a real father figure in their lives. Hartwell probably read it in the prison library, learning about his erasure in 4 column inches. His son posted on social media last month. 5 years since the toxic people left our lives. Never been happier. No names mentioned, but everyone knew who he meant. The children thrive despite, or maybe because of, their mother's absence. Rachel works at Procter & Gamble in brand management. Rebecca's at Cincinnati Children's Hospital as a financial analyst. Daniel's crushing his engineering program at Case Western, already has a job offer from Boeing for after graduation. They don't talk about their mother. When people ask, they say she died. In a way, she did. The mother they thought they knew never existed. Do you think she ever really loved us? Rebecca asked one evening, after a few glasses of wine. I think she loved the idea of you, I said carefully. The perfect family to go with her perfect suburban life. When that life began to bore her, you became props she didn't need anymore. That's horrible. That's honest. Would you prefer a comforting lie? No, she said firmly. We've had enough lies for a lifetime. At my desk, the same desk where I discovered her betrayal, I keep one photo from our marriage. Not a happy couple photo, those are all gone. Instead, it's from Rachel and Rebecca's 5th birthday party. Laura is in the background, distracted by her phone, already checked out. But in the foreground are my 3 children, covered in cake and smiling. That's what survived. That's what mattered. The numbers tell the final story. Laura traded 21 years of marriage, 3 children, and a secure future for 6 months of excitement and the promise of $850,000 house she'll never own. She gained 5 years in federal prison, a lifetime ban from financial services, and a federal conviction that will follow her forever. Hartwell traded a successful business, 2 children, and his reputation for an affair with a married woman and a fraud scheme that any first-year auditor would have caught. He gained 8 years in prison, bankruptcy, and complete isolation. I traded my illusions about my marriage for truth, my naive trust for careful verification, my assumption of loyalty for the knowledge that people lie, even those who promise not to. The exchange rate was painful but fair. The children traded their mother for integrity. They chose difficult truth over comfortable lies. They learned that crimes have consequences, that choices define character, that some betrayals are unforgivable. These are hard lessons for teenagers and young adults, but valuable ones. Margaret asked me once if I regret not trying to work things out with Laura, not attempting counseling or reconciliation. She didn't just cheat, I explained. She planned to destroy me financially, take my children's future, build her happiness on my ruins. You don't counsel through that. You survive it, then you bury it. Then you build something better on the grave. And have you? Built something better? I looked around my honest house, thought of my successful children, considered the woman asking the question. A woman who knew my whole story and chose to stay anyway. I'm building it, I said. Every day, I'm building it. The last letter Laura sent me, forwarded through her attorney since direct contact violates the protective order, asked a simple question. Was it worth it? I didn't respond, but if I had, the answer would have been simple. Was what worth it? Protecting my children from a mother who would steal their college funds? Preventing you from defrauding banks and destroying more families? Showing you that actions have consequences? Yes. Absolutely. Every single time, yes. There's a satisfaction in balanced books, in making numbers align, in ensuring debits equal credits. Laura thought she could cook the books of our marriage, hide the fraud, escape with the assets. She forgot who she was dealing with. She forgot that I've spent my entire career catching people who think they're smarter than the system. She forgot that numbers never lie. The mortgage she and Hartwell sought, $850,000 for a house built on lies, became their prison sentence. 8,000 hours for him, 4,000 for her, served in 8 by 10 cells with metal toilets and concrete views. The interest compounds daily in missed birthdays, absent graduations, family gatherings they'll never attend. The principal will never be paid off. I received word last week that Laura had requested a video call with the children for Christmas. The request was denied, not by me, but by them. Rachel drafted the response. The family you abandoned doesn't exist anymore. The children you called obligations have no obligations to you. Enjoy your consequences. Too harsh, she asked me. Too honest, I said. There's a difference. The truth is, I think about Laura less and less. She's becoming what she always should have been. A cautionary tale about greed and betrayal. A reminder to verify trust. A footnote in my family's history. The children are writing their own stories now. Ones where she doesn't exist except as a lesson in what not to become. Margaret and I are planning that European trip for next summer. Not the grand tour Laura dreamed of with Hartwell, but something better. Authentic, earned, shared with someone who sees me as a partner, not a piggy bank. We'll drink wine in small cafes, tour museums at our own pace, create memories that don't require lies to maintain. You know what the difference is between Laura's dream trip and ours? Margaret asked while we were planning. What? We can actually afford ours, and we won't go to prison for it afterward. I laughed, really laughed, for the first time in years, because she was right. Every dream Laura had required fraud to achieve. Every goal demanded someone else's destruction. She could have had Europe, honestly, if she'd just waited, saved, planned with me instead of against me. But that would have required patience, partnership, and genuine love. 3 things she apparently never possessed. Hartwell's mother died last month. He was denied compassionate release to attend the funeral. His children went, stood with their stepfather, mourned the grandmother who'd been kind to them despite her son's cruelty. They posted photos on social media, a family united in grief. Hartwell's absence not even mentioned. He's been erased so thoroughly it's like he never existed. Laura's parents will probably die while she's incarcerated. They're both in declining health, accelerated by the shame of their daughter's crimes. They've stopped telling people about her, removed her photos from their walls, speak of their grandchildren but never their daughter. She's broken them in ways that go beyond financial fraud. She's stolen their golden years, replaced them with gray shame. I think about the day Laura gets released sometimes. She'll emerge into a world that's moved 5 years forward without her. No smartphone, no social media presence, no professional network, just a federal conviction and a reputation destroyed by her own greed. She'll take a bus from West Virginia to Florida, arrive at her parents' house if they're still alive, or a homeless shelter if they're not. Either way, she'll be alone. The children will be established by then. Rachel probably married, Rebecca running a department, Daniel designing rockets or bridges or whatever engineers dream of. They'll see news of her release on the victim notification system, shrug, and continue with their lives. She's not their mother anymore. She's just federal inmate number 47,892-083. Served 5 years for fraud, released to a world that's forgotten she exists except as a cautionary tale. And me? I'll be living my authentic life with Margaret or alone, either way, content. The house will be sold, the memories composted into wisdom. I'll still maintain my spreadsheets, still track every expense, still believe that numbers never lie. But I'll also verify everything, trust with documentation, love with receipts. Laura thought she was trading up, from boring David to exciting James, from suburban comfort to luxury crime. She got the trade she deserved: freedom for imprisonment, family for isolation, love for concrete walls. The exchange rate was exactly what the market determined: complete loss for attempted theft. The final irony? If Laura had just asked for a divorce, she'd have gotten half of everything legally: the house, the retirement, the investments, all divisible in no-fault Ohio. But that would have meant admitting failure, accepting a middle-class divorce instead of an upper-class crime. Her greed cost her everything she could have had legally. That's the lesson I take from this. Criminals aren't just evil, they're stupid. Laura and Hartwell thought they were smarter than the system, smarter than the FBI, smarter than a CFO who'd spent decades catching fraud. They thought their 6 months of planning could overcome 21 years of marriage, 3 children worth protecting, and a man who understands that numbers never lie. They thought wrong. The numbers told the truth from the beginning. The parking pass that didn't exist, the restaurant charges during class time, the $47,000 siphoned from her business, the $850,000 mortgage based on fabricated income. Each number was a breadcrumb leading to the truth. My wife was a criminal planning my destruction. Now the numbers tell a different truth. 0 letters from Laura opened. 0 visits to federal prison. 0 regrets about turning her in. 0 chance of reconciliation. 0 forgiveness for the unforgivable. But also, 3 successful children who chose integrity. 1 honest relationship with Margaret. 2 rental properties sold for profit. 1 new life built on truth instead of lies. The math works out. It always does, if you're honest about the calculations. Laura's serving her time, earning her 23 cents an hour, writing letters nobody reads. Hartwell's in protective custody, hiding from inmates who hate financial predators. Their romance, built on fraud and funded by my planned destruction, ended in handcuffs and federal charges. The house they dreamed of was never built, the Europe trip never taken. The life they imagined worth destroying mine for never materialized. Instead, they got exactly what they earned: consequences, compounded daily for the rest of their lives. And me, I got my freedom. Not the freedom Laura sought, freedom from responsibility, from commitment, from consequences. Real freedom, from lies, from manipulation, from wondering if my wife loves me or just my paycheck. It's a freedom she'll never understand, even when she's released. She'll be free from prison, but never free from what she's done. Every job application, every background check, every Google search will remind her that she traded everything for nothing. I still maintain my spreadsheets, still reconcile accounts monthly, still project futures based on careful calculations. But now I also factor in variables I once ignored: the possibility of betrayal, the cost of trust, the value of verification. My formulas are more complex now, but more accurate. They account for human nature, not just human promises. The children understand this too. They've learned to read the numbers behind the numbers, the motivations behind the mathematics. They'll enter relationships with their eyes open, understanding that love requires both trust and verification, that people can lie for decades, that the most dangerous criminals are the ones who sleep beside you. It's a harsh lesson, but a valuable one. Better to learn it from their father's experience than their own betrayal. Better to see consequences delivered than to suffer them personally. Better to watch justice served cold than revenge served hot. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder who Laura really was. The woman I married, who juggled stress balls at midnight and painted nurseries on weekends? Or the criminal who plotted my destruction while kissing me goodbye? Maybe both. Maybe neither. Maybe people are just capable of complete transformation when greed and excitement overcome integrity and commitment. It doesn't matter anymore. The Laura I loved is dead, if she ever existed. The Laura in prison is a stranger who shares my children's DNA but nothing else. The Laura who'll emerge in 2 years will be a cautionary tale, a reminder, a proof that choices have consequences, and consequences compound like interest on a loan that can never be repaid. The numbers never lie. They told me the truth when I didn't want to hear it. They provided the evidence when I needed to prove it. They calculated the consequences when justice required it. They balanced the books when everything seemed lost. In the end, the numbers saved me from a woman who forgot that behind every spreadsheet is a human who understands what those numbers mean. Laura thought I was just boring David with his Excel files and rental properties. She discovered I was David Rogers, CFO, father, and destroyer of those who threaten what I've built. The mortgage she sought, $850,000 for a house of lies, became her prison. The man she chose over me became her fellow inmate. The life she imagined became a federal conviction. The numbers she falsified became evidence. The husband she called boring became her downfall. And the numbers, they never lied. They never lie. They just tell the truth to those willing to calculate the real cost of betrayal.